Lighting is one of the most effective ways to continuously up the quality of your video projects, not only for yourself, but also for out-facing clients. And once you have a pretty good idea of the type of light that you want, probably some LED, COB, or maybe some panels, the next logical step to continuously progress in your videography career is to figure out what type of accessories that you want to put on those specific lights. This video is going to talk about 5 different accessories that you can put on your lights to continuously up the game that you've got going on and lead to more higher paying clients. Internet, what's going on? It's your boy Robert Teagarden here today talking about 5 different lighting accessories that I think is going to help you up your videography career and lead to more higher paying clients. When I was first starting out in my videography career, I was always focusing on the camera and the lenses. And although those are definitely things that you need to be focusing on in some capacity, the thing that really leveled my videography career up was focusing on lighting and the specific types of lighting I would need to get the looks that my clients were desiring. The first thing that I got was a LED panel from a company called LEDGO. It's a 18 by 24 inch panel that's great for overhead types of shots. It's a bicolored thing and it's all great, but those panels really limit the amount of things that you can do because they don't have a ton of modifiers on it for you to shape the type of light that you want. And really that's what all of these accessories are about. How do we shape light? So the first accessory I want to talk about are soft boxes. Now this one seems a bit obvious. I mean, it's probably the package of lights that you got came with some sort of softbox attached to it. Now, the light dome from Aputure is a really popular one, but there are a bunch of other companies that are supplying light modifiers, specifically light domes that you can use. Now, the first one that I got, like I mentioned, was the Light Dome 2, and it's a 36-inch light dome that has the diffusion, both inner and outer diffusion, along with a grid. Now, this thing got used a ton. In fact, it still gets used today in a lot of the videos that I put out, and it's fantastic. It's a Bones mount adapter, which I'll talk more about in just a second, but it gives you the ability to soften the light and shape it, and especially with the grid to kind of put more directional focus on where that light goes rather than spreading all over the place. Light domes and their equivalent competitors are somewhere around the range of $100 to $150, so they're reasonably affordable, but they're an excellent way to up the quality of your lighting experience. Moving on from softboxes, another form of Bones mount adapter that I use all of the time would be strip boxes. Now, strip boxes are an excellent way of shaping very kind of directional light in kind of what they say in strips of light. And I use these things often for side lights, hair lights, or especially when I'm doing product photography and videography, I use them to point a very specific area of light, especially when I'm doing underwater work. I tend to use smaller ones because a lot of the product videography that I end up doing is kind of smaller in nature, but they have wide ranges of these things all the way up to 48-inch by 18 inches. Just take a look at some of the links that I put down in the description to see which one's going to fit for you, but these things are an excellent addition to what you've got going on your kit. Aputure makes a modifier called the Lantern, and if you've seen any of my behind the scenes videos or you're looking at things that are shot inside my garage studio, you're seeing this lantern in focus. Now, I typically tend to use this on a top-down type of setting just because it spreads really beautiful light around a top-down focus. So if you see any type of tabletop setup or overhead things, this is my go-to for using that. I think they have 2 different versions that I'll link in the description below, but the other thing that I love about this thing is that it's just so easy to set up. Instead of running different strips inside a speed ring, I can just push down on this thing, open it up, attach it to the lights that I've got hanging in the garage, and I'm ready to go. Now that I'm done talking about all of these different types of softbox modifiers between light domes, lanterns, strip boxes, all those things kind of categorized into one, I want to move on to different lighting accessories that clip onto the front of these types of lights. The first thing I want to talk about are Fresnel mounts. Fresnel, I've always called them Fresnels, but if you've ever looked at kind of some old school videography or photography, you see a light blasting in the background, 9 times out of 10, that's a Fresnel that's being on there, whether it's an actual Fresnel light or a modifier that's being shoved on the end of a new LED COB. Now, there's a very specific type of look, and I doubt that many people are going to be using it as their main key light. However, they most often are using it as some type of an accessory, whether that's to spotlight some type of thing in the background, kind of highlight something that's going on the backdrop potentially, or actually reverse key and give the viewer the impression that this light is coming from behind the source, kind of similar to what I'm doing back here, but only with a big modifier on a LED light. Now, the cool thing about these Fresnel mounts is that you can widen and narrow the spread by kind of rotating the Fresnel mount on the front of the light. So you can get a very fixed pinpoint light that you like, or you can kind of spread it out across a backdrop like I was talking about earlier. Now, these things aren't necessarily cheap. I think the one that I have is around 200 bucks, but it's an incredible way of being able to accentuate different types of looks. Another great addition are what we would call barn doors, and I'm sure you guys have seen these in some way, shape, or form. They're literally just the aluminum doors that go on the top, bottom, and sides of any particular light mount that you have. I've got a few from Aputure, but they're Bowings mount adapters, which means that I can put them on any LED COB light that has a Bowings fixture in the front of it. These things I love because, again, I can start to shape the light. If I want just a little slice of light, I can kind of close everything up and make it very specific. If I want to open them up and create that kind of Fresnel effect, I can do that as well. Another great feature about these Bowings mount adapter barn doors is that they have a little magnetic gate. At least most of them have a magnetic gate that I can attach certain gels. Most of us are getting lights that are just a single color temperature, usually that 5600 to 6000 Kelvin. And so if I need to warm something up with the CTO or color temperature orange, I can put a gel on there too. If I need to cool things down with the CTB, I can do that as well by putting some blue filters in there, or any other type of filters that you want to put on there too. Reds, greens, purples, pinks, whatever the shit you want to put on there. You can do it with these types of things. There's little honeycomb adapters too to kind of, again, fix the light. Instead of spreading it out, they kind of narrow in on what's going on. These things aren't very expensive at all. And again, another great thing to add to your kit where lighting is concerned. It's fantastic. Barn doors are definitely the way to go. One of my favorites that you've seen in a bunch of my videos is what we call a snoot. Snoot is kind of like a little cone or a progressively more narrow cone that you put on the end of a COB light. It gives you the ability to really pinpoint as small as you possibly can this exact point of focus of what you're looking for. I use this a ton in product videography, especially to backlight the source, create a rim around the back of my products. I also use it to kind of accentuate and illuminate things from the back, especially helpful in drink photography or videography when you want to see, you know, bubbles and the character and texture of what the light looks like or the product looks like. Snoots are an incredible way to do that. Also, if I need to just shine particular light on a subject's head or some shoulder, snoots are a great way of doing that, and we do these all the time depending on where we need to light them. The other thing about snoots is that they're very small. They don't take up a ton of space, so rigging them actually ends up being very easy to do. The snoot that I have is from a Neewer, the NEEWRE, whatever it is, and it's really cheap. I think it's under 30 bucks, so check out the link down below. But a snoot is a fantastic way of adding additional character, especially if it's a pinpoint focus. Another thing we've been using on set a ton lately are gobo attachments. Now, gobo attachments are really interesting. It's basically a projector of sorts. Maybe you've seen some of these things where people look like they're adding set of blinds in behind them, or they've added, you know, plant life or those sorts of things, just texture on the wall. Gobos are an incredible way of doing so. They're not cheap, but you can find some very affordable options, which I'll link down below, but they really do add an incredible texture to the picture that you've got going on in the background. Just visual interest of what things look like. You can knock them out of focus, so it's not very harsh. We've been using these a lot in interviews, just again, to add a depth of field, a depth of texture to what we've got going on our scene. Clients tend to love these things. We love the look. I think you guys are gonna love gobo attachments as well. So check out the examples that we've given below. The next thing I want to talk about is lighting rigging. Things like C-stands and clamps, friction arms, all those sorts of things, Methylene clamps, ways in which that you can mount different types of lighting all over the place. Now, you've seen me throw things up in a bunch of different videos. In the studio build that I had, I used super clamps on top of the joists in my garage. We use a bunch of ranges of light stands, whether it's these Matthews kind of single pods that are excellent, unbelievably affordable and incredible value to add, especially for those strip boxes I was talking about earlier. I love Kupo C-stands, especially with the turtle base. You look like such a badass flinging these things open in the middle of set while other people are just futzing around trying to get the C-stand legs to do what they're supposed to do. They have wide variety of lengths from a 20-inch to a 40-inch. Methylene clamps, friction arms, all these things are just various ways of rigging your lighting to be able to go on a wide variety of things. Obviously, ideally you want things to go on stands, but sometimes the set doesn't, or even the shot doesn't necessarily afford you the luxury of doing so. So being able to kind of boom these things in all over the place and having a decent setup of things to choose from is a great option for you to have when you show up on set ready to light. Now, if you like the video, like the damn video. If you haven't already, hit the button to subscribe, post your notifications, all that different stuff, and check out these videos over here on various different lighting accessories and lighting types that I think that you would enjoy.